Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to All 24 News Midnight Bulletin. I'm your host, Mariam Zian, and here are your top stories. Zionist occupation army has committed 11 massacres in Gaza in the past 24 hours, killing 96 people and injuring 172, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. And a truce for 40 days and a prisoner exchange in Gaza is likely to be implemented as Hamas is currently studying a proposal which was agreed upon by Israeli representatives during discussions with mediators in Paris. You will also follow in our news bulletin. The Kremlin has warned of direct conflict with NATO over troop deployment of Ukraine as the alliance's countries refuse sending troops to intervene in Ukraine. Hello and welcome again to the program. At the outset, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said that occupation army committed 11 massacres across the Gaza Strip in the past 24 hours. The new assault left 96 casualties and 172 other people injured. This brings the death toll from the Zionist deadly offensive against the Gaza Strip to 29,878 since October 7. The Health Ministry made the statement as the occupation deadly onslaught against Gaza has entered its 144th day. Palestinian Health Ministry said that the Zionist occupation that stormed the Nasser medical complex in the city of Khan Yunis south of the Gaza Strip destroyed its health system. These same sources added that medical teams are unable to provide health care to patients in the complex after the electrical generator and oxygen station stopped. The ministry added that the Zionist assault caused the disruption of the sewerage systems, water outage, accumulation of waste, and the lack of medical capabilities. All is hindering work at the Nasser medical complex. Hamas is now examining a proposal agreed by Zionists at talks with mediators in Paris last week for a ceasefire that would suspend fighting for 40 days, becoming the first extended truce in the history of the 5-month-old war. Marwa Belaywar.
Every day that passes in Gaza results in the death of thousands of Palestinian civilians, including children and women. The situation there remains unchanged in terms of slaughter, displacement, and violations of human and international rights. However, numerous reports on media are indicating that a truce is about to be implemented in Gaza prior to the holy month of Ramadan, a period when the Zionist entity usually intensifies its attacks on the Palestinian people. Hamas has received a draft proposal from Gaza truce talks in Paris for a pause in military operation and exchange of Palestinian prisoners against Zionist detainees, a senior source close to the talks declared to Reuters on Tuesday. U.S. President Joe Biden said Israel has agreed to halt military activities in Gaza for the Muslim holy month of Ramadan as the resistance group is examining the draft proposal.
Well, I hope by the beginning of the weekend, the end of the weekend. At least my national security advisor tells me that we're close. We're close. It's not done yet. And my hope is by next Monday we'll have a ceasefire.
Senior Hamas officials, meanwhile, told Reuters that Biden's comments, which seems to imply that an agreement had already been reached in principle, were premature and did not reflect the reality on the ground. They also said that there are still major gaps that need to be addressed before the ceasefire. It is noteworthy that the Zionist genocidal war that has been going on for more than 4 months against innocent civilians has led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and pushed about 2.2 million people, the vast majority of the population of the Gaza Strip, to the verge of starvation.
Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari said that his country is optimistic about the ceasefire talks in Gaza and hopes for a cessation of hostilities during the holy month of Ramadan. Majid al-Ansari denied the existence of any agreement between the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, and the Zionist entity that could be announced at the present moment.
We have seen a positive trajectory by the sheer fact that the meetings are taking place, but we have yet to reach a final agreement where we can hopefully announce before the beginning of Ramadan a humanitarian pause that would ease the tensions and would allow us to bring in more aid into Gaza and would allow us to de-escalate starting from there.
Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations said during the last UN Security Council session that the situation in Gaza is alarming and the occupying authorities' treatment of the population is inhumane. Mr. Ammar bin Jama' added that by the end of February, all people in Gaza will face dangerous levels of acute food insecurity. Let's take a listen.
The rare decision of the Security Council have not improved the situation because there were no ceasefire. Nutrition screening in the north of Gaza revealed that more than 15% of children under 2 years are acutely malnourished. It is likely that with January and February data, the situation will worsen, especially in the north, which is at this time inaccessible.
The Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas, announced that it targeted a Zionist D9 bulldozer with an Al-Yasin 105 shell north of Musab bin Umayr Mosque, east of the Zaytun neighborhood in Gaza City. Al-Qassam also confirmed in a statement on Tuesday that its forces destroyed a Zionist Merkava tank with an Al-Yasin 105 shell in the Balad area in the city of Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip. The Al-Quds Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, published on Telegram platform new scenes of what it described as an operation to snipe a Zionist soldier on the front lines east of Khan Yunis. Let's take a look. The International Union of Muslim Scholars has hailed Algeria's honorable positions towards the Palestinian issue. The Secretary General of the Union, Sheikh Dr. Ali Al-Qarra Daghi called on the sidelines of the inauguration of the Algiers Grand Mosque for holding an international humanitarian conference to support the oppressed people in the world, especially the Palestinians, who are subjected to a genocidal war in the Gaza Strip.
I have big hopes for Algeria, which took an honorable stance. Within the Union, we honored, paid tribute, and commended Algeria's great role through its role in the United Nations and its big contribution in expelling the Zionist enemy from the African Union organization. For this, dear brothers, I have a proposal, and I hope that the country of dignity, the country of generosity, the country of heroism, and the country of sacrifice will respond to us. This proposal is that His Excellency the President of the Republic calls for the holding of an international humanitarian conference from which it will emanate an international humanitarian alliance against the oppressed people, especially in Gaza.
On Tuesday morning, the Lebanese Hezbollah said it targeted the Zionist air control base in Mount Meron in the occupied Palestinian territories with a volley of rockets. The party said in a statement that targeting the Meron base came in response to the Israeli aggression in eastern Lebanon, adding that it also targeted a site in the occupied Sheba farms, causing direct casualties. The United Nations Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, said that no one from the working group concerned with the ceasefire wants to see further escalation in Syria. In a briefing to the Security Council, Pedersen stressed the need for an urgent halt to the escalation in Syria, building on the existing ceasefire arrangements in order to a nationwide ceasefire in line with UN resolutions, as he put it.
Remains violent and unstable, with further killings and clashes in Deraa, as well as fresh confrontations between the Jordanian army and what they say were arms smugglers on the Syrian-Jordanian border. Plainly, the tension in the region needs to be urgently de-escalating, starting with the immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza that the Secretary General has called for.
Algeria's permanent representative to the UN, Ammar Ben Jama, has emphasized that the settlement of the conflict in Syria cannot be achieved without political solutions under Syria's auspices, underlining Algeria's support for the efforts of the UN envoy to Syria, Geir Pedersen, aimed at building trust among the various parties to the conflict.
I would like to emphasize that the A3+ strongly maintains that the resolution to the Syrian crisis is solely achievable through political means. We therefore advocate our support for Mr. Pedersen's effort and engagement, including those related to building confidence through a step-by-step approach. We also call upon all actors to assist him, to facilitate discussion and negotiation among Syrians in line with Resolution 2254.
A statement released by the Algerian Ministry of Defense on Tuesday said that Lieutenant General Saïd Chingrihad, the Chief of Staff of the Algerian Army, supervised the execution of a live ammunition tactical exercise called Whirlwind 2024, which was carried out by units from the operational sector of Burj Beji Mukhtar with assistance from units from various weapons. The same source also mentioned that Major General Mohammed Ajroud, commander of the 6th Military Region, along with Lieutenant General Shengriha, oversaw the sector's shooting range and maneuvers. They also witnessed the combat operations conducted by intervening units, which were notable for their high tactical and operational proficiency as well as their professional standards. The Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, emphasized the strong relations between Algeria and Qatar in various fields, particularly in the mining and energy sectors. He also expressed optimism about the future growth and development of cooperative projects between both countries, like the Bellara iron and steel project. The Algerian minister stressed that concerns of energy security and geopolitical tensions will be at the forefront of the 7th session of the Forum of Presidents and Heads of Government of Gas Exporting Countries, which will take place in Algeria early next month.
On the regional level, the Gulf sector has witnessed changes and crises in Europe and the Middle East, and this poses great challenges in managing supply and demand. As for the international level, the upcoming summit will face challenges such as the repercussions of the COVID-19 crisis and adapting to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement in light of increasing pressure to accelerate dialogue on goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and reducing the use of fossil energy.
Mr. Mohamed Arqab also noted that the 7th Head of State and Government Summit, which is going to be held in Algeria at the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, is a highly significant strategic occasion in the energy field. He anticipates that the 7th edition of this summit will be a huge success in every way, from planning to record levels of participation. Let's take a listen.
The holding of the 7th Summit of Heads of State and Government at the Gas Exporting Countries Forum in Algeria represents a strategic event of utmost importance in the field of energy. And aware of the importance of this exceptional event, the Algerian authorities have provided all capabilities and created all necessary conditions for all delegations, organizations, and official bodies. We expect the success of the summit on all levels.
For their part, the sheikhs and religious figures who attended the celebration of the inauguration of the Algiers Grand Mosque agreed on its importance as a religious and cultural edifice, considering that it's an extension of the message of the Algerian Liberation Revolution. Let's take a listen.
We have come all the way long from Australia to share the joy of the people of Algeria about this great edifice. Thank God I had the honor to be among those who were present at the opening along with the President of the Republic. May Allah guide his way. This is really a great achievement, and to be honest, we are proud of this great edifice.
The Algerian people are preserving Islam and traditions, and this is an extension of the revolution of the fighters who freed the country from the colonizers. And we are sure that this mosque will spread as the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, spread the love of people, the love of humanity, forgiveness, justice, and the attachment of the religion of Allah the Almighty.
The head of the Libyan Presidential Council, Mohammed al-Menfi, emphasized in a joint press conference with General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, leader of the Sovereign Council in Sudan, Libya's adherence to the principle of non-interference in Sudan's internal affairs, politically and militarily. Al-Menfi also commended the Jeddah deal, which gave a short-lived ceasefire at the start of the war in Sudan.
أكدنا على دعمنا وأعلنا عليه We emphasized and announced our support to Sudan by supporting the outcome of the Jeddah meeting, which brought together Sudanese rival parties last May, as it is a very important step towards ending the conflict and war and reaching stability in Sudan.
For his part, the head of Sudan's ruling sovereign council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, appreciated the positive stance of Libya towards Sudan. Let's take a listen.
We agreed on reinforcing our relations through different aspects, whether economic, political or military. Libya has always had honorable stances towards Sudan and the Sudanese people. We can use the previous and future mechanisms to sustain this relationship. I don't say we have similar circumstances, but we have to cooperate in order to lift the suffering our peoples are going through, to regain stability and make our people able to live a good life without any negative interventions from any parties.
Moving on to a different file, thousands of farmers marched in Poland's capital on Tuesday to protest against the European Union agricultural policies and imports of cheap food from neighboring Ukraine. Protesters say they want the Polish government to withdraw from the EU's Green Deal, a plan meant to fight climate change and help the environment with measures that they say are too costly. It's worth noting that similar protests are taking place across Europe as well.
The demands are unchanged. It is to withdraw from the Green Deal completely. It is to protect our borders, primarily with Ukraine, for goods flowing from there that threaten our agriculture, and to protect animals. Animal protection, which means no agreement by farmers to eliminate or limit breeding, and there are such attempts.
In the European Union, first of all, or in Brussels, conditions are set without us, and nothing about us without us. We have a say, and it's getting worse every year.
The Kremlin warned on Tuesday that conflict between Russia and NATO military alliance would be inevitable if European members of NATO sent troops to fight in Ukraine. In the meantime, Jens Stoltenberg denied that NATO countries were considering the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine. Nabil Khazini.
The last statement by the French President Emmanuel Macron about his country's possibility to send troops to Ukraine has had a big echo in Europe and beyond. Immediately after Macron's suggestion, the Kremlin warned that a conflict between Russia and NATO would be inevitable if European members of the alliance sent troops to fight in Ukraine.
In this case, we need to talk not about probability, but about inevitability. This is how I estimate it, and these countries should estimate it the same way and be aware of this, and ask themselves whether this is in their interests, and most importantly, in the interest of the citizens of their countries.
Criticism came also from inside NATO. Prime ministers of 4 Central European NATO members said they had no plans to send ground troops to Ukraine. The United States, a key player in the alliance, said there won't be any of its troops on the Ukrainian ground.
Well, that's a sovereign decision that every NATO ally would have to make for themselves. You heard Secretary General Stoltenberg say himself he had no plans or intentions of certainly under NATO auspices, of putting troops on the ground. And President Biden has been crystal clear since the beginning of this conflict. There will be no U.S. troops on the ground in a combat role there in Ukraine.
This comes a day after NATO has reinforced itself with a new member. Hungary's parliament overwhelmingly approved Sweden's bid to join NATO, clearing the way for the Nordic nations' accession to the alliance after nearly 2 years of intense negotiations.
To some sports news now. The International Federation of Football Association, FIFA, announced on Monday the launch of a project for a series of international matches in a group format hosted by Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Azerbaijan and Sri Lanka. The pilot project for the friendly matches will be held from March 18 to 26, 2024, and the FIFA series of matches will be fully launched in the same month of 2026. Algeria will host Andorra, Bolivia and South Africa, and Azerbaijan will host Bulgaria, Mongolia and Tanzania. And in return, the Sri Lanka series will include Bhutan, Central Africa, Papua New Guinea, as well as the host country. With this, we wrap up our news edition. Thank you very much for tuning in and have a good night.